They only call when they need something. They show up when it's convenient. They act like you're important, but only when it benefits them. Let's stop pretending you don't see it. Let's stop sugarcoating the truth. You're being used, and you know it. But here's the real question. Why are you allowing it? This is not just about the people in your life. This is about you. This is about your boundaries, your self-respect, your self-worth. This is about understanding the silent message you keep sending every time you say yes when you really mean no. Every time you sacrifice your peace just to please others. Every time you show up for everyone, but no one shows up for you. This ends now. Every single interaction you have with others sends a message. Either you're conscious of it or not. You're teaching people how to treat you through your actions, reactions, and patterns. When you allow people to disrespect your time, ignore your boundaries, or take advantage of your kindness without speaking up, you're silently telling them it's acceptable. When you constantly say yes out of fear of upsetting someone, even when you're overwhelmed, you're signaling that your time, your energy, and your needs come second. The truth is, people often treat you based on the standards you set for yourself. If you don't show people what's acceptable and what's not, they'll assume anything goes. And once that pattern is set, it becomes harder and harder to reverse. Most people are not intentionally cruel or manipulative, but people naturally gravitate toward ease. And if you're someone who always says yes, who never complains, who absorbs the weight of others without resistance, it's easy for them to keep taking. It's not necessarily that they don't care. It's that you've made it easy for them not to. You've made yourself so dependable that they've come to expect your. Over time, they stop seeing your efforts as something generous. They begin to see them as your responsibility. What started as a kind gesture turns into an obligation. And the moment you hesitate, you're accused of being selfish, distant, or changed. But the truth is, the only thing that changed was your realization of how much you've allowed. The standard you set becomes the pattern others follow. If you never speak up when you're hurt, people assume you're fine. If you keep showing up for people who never return the favor, they assume you don't mind. If you keep forgiving without confrontation, they assume you'll always tolerate anything. And that's how you end up in relationships, friendships, and work environments where your voice is silenced, your needs are ignored, and your presence is taken for granted. This isn't just about other people. It's about the boundaries you haven't enforced. It's about the way you've neglected to advocate for yourself. The sad reality is that people won't always treat you with the care you deserve unless you demand it. Not with anger or hostility, but with firmness, clarity, and consistency. Teaching people how to treat you doesn't mean pushing others away or being difficult. It means valuing yourself enough to communicate what you will and won't accept. It means recognizing when someone's actions don't align with your worth and having the strength to either correct it or walk away. You may think staying quiet or going along with things keeps the peace, but it's only a temporary peace. Underneath that silence is growing resentment, emotional exhaustion, and the erosion of your self-respect. Every time you swallow your feelings to keep someone else comfortable, you're sacrificing a piece of yourself. Every time you prioritize others at the cost of your own well-being, you reinforce the belief that you are less important. Changing this pattern starts with a choice, a decision to show up differently. It's about setting boundaries that reflect your worth and enforcing them with calm conviction. It's about honoring your own needs as much as you've honored everyone else's. You teach people how to treat you by treating yourself with the level of dignity and care you want from others. You don't need to be aggressive or harsh. You just need to be consistent. Because at the end of the day, the way people treat you is often just a mirror of what you've taught them is acceptable. You were never created to be walked over, dismissed, or taken for granted. Yet somehow, life teaches us to play small, to stay quiet, to bend over backward just to keep the peace. Somewhere along the way, you began believing that in order to be loved, accepted, or valued, you had to make yourself useful at any cost, even if that meant sacrificing your voice, your needs, and your identity. But you're not a doormat. You're a doorway. You're not here to be used up, worn down, or ignored. You're here to lead, to inspire, to open paths where none existed before. A doormat gets stepped on and left behind. A doorway stands strong, offering direction, opportunity, and a way through. There's a big difference between being accessible and being abused. And it's time you remembered what you were truly made for. When people begin to treat you like an option, it's not just because they're careless. It's because they've been allowed to. It's because somewhere along the way, you became so busy trying to prove your worth through your usefulness that they forgot you had worth even when you weren't serving their needs. You don't exist to constantly solve problems, carry burdens, or show up for people who won't even return a call when you need them. You weren't created to be anyone's emotional dumping ground or their backup plan when everything else falls apart. That's not strength. That's a form of self-abandonment, and it slowly erodes the very core of who you are. Being a doorway means you lead others into clarity, into wisdom, into growth. You create movement. You open new ways of thinking. You inspire change. But even doorways have locks. Even doorways have hinges. And they only open when someone truly intends to walk with purpose. They don't stay wide open for anyone who just wants to pass through, use what's inside, and leave a mess behind. That's what happens when you forget your value. You stay wide open, hoping that by being endlessly available, someone will finally see your worth. But people rarely value what they can easily exploit. It's the things we have to earn, respect, and protect that we treasure most. So the moment you start reclaiming your identity as a doorway, not a doormat, you begin to set limits. You begin to say, I'm here to help, but I'm not here to be drained. You begin to say, I love deeply, but not at the cost of my own soul. You begin to understand that giving and being taken for granted are two very different things. You begin to see that your light isn't meant to blind you with obligation. It's meant to guide others who are willing to walk in truth with you. The people who deserve your time, your energy, and your loyalty are the ones who recognize your strength and treat it with honor. They don't step on you, they stand with you. They don't use you, they support you. They see that you're not here to be convenient, you're here to be impactful. And when you shift from being a people pleaser to being purpose-driven, you start to attract those who value what you carry, not just what you offer. You stop becoming a space where people wipe their feet, and you become a passageway to something greater, something more aligned with who you truly are. You have to understand the difference between humility and self-erasure. Being humble doesn't mean you let others devalue you. It means you know your power, but don't have to shout it. But if you constantly allow people to treat you like you're beneath them, they'll never look up to see your worth. And you were never meant to stay beneath anyone. You were meant to rise, to lift others, and to walk through doors of your own choosing. When people only come around when they need something, when their presence is dictated by convenience rather than care, it's a clear sign that respect was never part of the equation. Respect doesn't look like showing up only when it's beneficial. It doesn't sound like silence when you're hurting, and it doesn't feel like being drained in every interaction. If someone values you only for what you can do for them and not for who you are, that's not a relationship, that's a transaction. And in a transaction, there's no real honor. There's just usage. People who truly respect you see your time, your energy, and your boundaries as things to protect, not exploit. They don't just appreciate your help, they appreciate your presence, your voice, your struggles, and your growth. They don't disappear when you're no longer useful. They stay because they care. Being used is not always obvious. Sometimes it hides behind flattery, behind charm, behind temporary attention that makes you feel wanted for a moment. But when that attention fades the moment you say no, when that kindness vanishes, as soon as you draw a line, the truth becomes undeniable. That person wasn't with you. They were with your benefits. They weren't connecting with your heart. They were connecting with your help. And it hurts. Because for a long time, you may have believed their presence meant something deeper. You may have poured your effort into building trust, only to realize it was built on the condition that you always provide. The moment you stop giving, the truth about the relationship steps into the light. Respect is shown in consistency. It's in who checks in even when they don't need a favor. It's in who listens when you speak and remembers what matters to you. It's in who shows up when you're down, not just when you're strong. But people who use you only see what they can take. They don't look at your needs because they don't consider them. They overlook your pain because it doesn't serve them. And they excuse their behavior with phrases like, I thought you didn't mind, or you've always helped before. But it's not your past kindness that's the problem. It's their expectation that you should always keep giving without limit. You have to learn to observe patterns, not promises. People can say they care, they can say they love you, but love without respect is empty. It's unstable. Because real respect creates room for honesty, for balance, and for mutual support. If someone can only see your worth when you're useful, they were never looking at you, they were looking through you. And that realization is painful, but it's also free. Because once you recognize it, you can stop chasing validation from those who never valued you. You can stop offering yourself to people who only take. The choice to stop being used is also a choice to start being respected. It's a decision to stop overextending yourself in hopes of earning loyalty and instead surround yourself with those who freely give it. You don't need to beg for care. You don't need to prove your worth through exhaustion. You're allowed to reserve your energy for people who see it as sacred. You're allowed to walk away from those who only remember you when they need something. You're allowed to say no and still be worthy. Because your value isn't measured by how many problems you solve or how many times you say yes. It's measured by who you are when you're not performing, when you're simply being. And the ones who truly respect you will see that, even when you have nothing to offer but your presence. Kindness is one of the most powerful qualities a person can possess. It builds bridges, heals wounds, and creates space for love and understanding. But far too often, kindness is mistaken for weakness. People see someone who is always willing to help, who forgives easily, who puts others first, and they assume that person can be pushed, manipulated, or taken for granted. They confuse a soft heart with a soft spine. And if you've been that kind person for too long, you've likely felt that confusion turn into pain, because while kindness is a beautiful trait, without boundaries, it becomes a burden. It turns into a weight you carry for others who never bother to help you carry your own. There's a fine line between being kind and being used, and it's one that many people don't talk about. You can show compassion without sacrificing your dignity. You can care deeply and still demand respect. Kindness doesn't mean you allow disrespect to continue unchecked. It doesn't mean you accept mistreatment just because you understand where it's coming from. Too often, people stay in toxic dynamics because they're empathetic. They make excuses for other people's bad behavior because they see their pain or potential. But your empathy should never become your excuse for tolerating what damages you. You can see someone's struggle and still hold them accountable. You can love someone and still walk away when they cross your boundaries. Being kind doesn't mean becoming everyone's emotional caretaker. It doesn't mean being available at all times, saying yes even when it costs you peace, or silencing your needs so others can be comfortable. Real kindness begins with yourself. It's recognizing that your well-being matters just as much as anyone else's. It's understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that constantly giving while receiving nothing in return doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a burned out one. People who truly appreciate your kindness will never expect you to exhaust yourself for their benefit. They won't guilt trip you for saying no or disappear when you need them most. The mistake many kind-hearted people make is believing that they have to prove their worth by how much they can endure. They think if they're nice enough, helpful enough, forgiving enough, people will eventually love them the way they deserve. But you can't force people to value you by diminishing yourself. You don't earn love through self-neglect. You attract manipulation when you make it easy for others to take advantage. And the worst part is, when you've been too nice for too long, people don't just expect it, they feel entitled to it. They believe your time, your energy, and your loyalty are theirs by default. And the moment you try to change that, they push back. Lovely statement. That's why boundaries are a crucial part of kindness, because without them, your giving turns into self-erasure. Boundaries protect your peace, your time, your mental health. They let others know, I'm kind, not weak. I'm available, not disposable. And if someone walks away because you finally stood up for yourself, let them go. There was never kindness they respected. It was control they enjoyed. The people meant to stay in your life will not be threatened by your growth. They will celebrate your self-respect, not challenge it. You can choose to be kind and still refuse to be treated like an option. You can be the person who shows up with love and strength, who forgives without forgetting, who helps without losing themselves. That is the balance of true kindness. Compassion that includes yourself. And once you understand that, you stop being afraid of setting limits, because you know that protecting your peace isn't cruel. It's a form of love too. The fear of losing people often becomes the very reason we lose ourselves. We silence our voice to avoid conflict, shrink our presence to avoid attention, and agree to things we don't believe in just to keep others happy. Deep down, there's a constant tug of war between the desire to be accepted and the need to be authentic. When the fear of abandonment drives your decisions, you start living a version of yourself that exists only to please others. You stop being who you are and become who you think they want. But in trying to keep everyone close, you end up drifting further from your own truth. You sacrifice your peace just to avoid the discomfort of someone walking away. That's not connection. That's survival. People who truly care about you won't force you to compromise your values just to earn their presence. They won't make their love conditional on your silence, submission, or convenience. But when you're afraid of being left, you begin to tolerate behavior you know is wrong. You let disrespect slide because confrontation feels scarier than being alone. You accept half-hearted love, one-sided loyalty, and shallow friendships because you believe that something, anything, is better than nothing. And that belief becomes your cage. You become trapped in cycles where your emotional needs are unmet, your worth is questioned, and your sense of identity is slowly fading. The truth is, not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. And that's okay. Letting go isn't a failure. Sometimes it's the most powerful form of self-respect. When someone only sticks around because you're constantly adjusting to fit their comfort, that relationship is built on control, not love. Real love requires freedom. It demands truth. It thrives in spaces where both people can be honest, flawed, and still accepted. If someone leaves because you finally said no, because you finally drew a boundary, or because you chose your peace over their approval, it's not your loss. That's their inability to appreciate who you really are. Living in fear of losing people often makes you hold on to what's already broken. You justify toxic behavior by saying they're just going through something, or maybe they'll change. You confuse loyalty with self-destruction, thinking that standing by someone, no matter how they treat you, is a virtue. But love without respect is manipulation. Presence without accountability is not connection, it's control. And staying silent to keep the peace only creates internal war. You end up hurting yourself more than anyone ever could, all because you're terrified of letting go. You have to start trusting that what you lose by standing up for yourself is nothing compared to what you gain. You gain clarity, you gain dignity, you gain space for the right people to come into your life. People who value you not for how much you can give, but for who you are. People who don't require you to pretend, who don't see your boundaries as threats, and who don't make love feel like a transaction. These are the people worth keeping. These are the connections that heal rather than hurt. Freedom comes when you stop fearing the loss of people who were never meant to stay, when you no longer trade your worth for temporary approval, when you realize that being alone in your truth is far better than being surrounded in your silence. You start living with power, The fear begins to fade, and in its place grows a deep, unshakable peace, the kind that only comes when you finally choose yourself. There's a big difference between being loyal and being taken advantage of, and the space between the two is often filled with emotional confusion. Loyalty is a beautiful thing. It reflects commitment, consistency, and a deep sense of trust. But when loyalty is one-sided, it becomes a chain. It turns into a pattern where you keep showing up for people who never show up for you, where you give second chances to those who never truly earned the first, and where your forgiveness becomes an expectation rather than a gift. The truth is, no matter how loyal you are to the wrong person, it won't make them value you. Loyalty cannot fix what someone else refuses to honor. It cannot heal what they consistently break. One of the most painful realizations is knowing that you stayed too long in a place you should have left. You believed in someone's potential, excused their behavior, overlooked the red flags, and convinced yourself that if you just held on tighter, they would change. But they didn't. Because loyalty without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. It's teaching someone that they can hurt you and you'll still be there, that your love comes with no conditions, even when they consistently dishonor it. It's not your job to suffer in silence just to prove your commitment. Being loyal does not mean tolerating emotional neglect, manipulation, or disrespect. It means being true to your values, and those values must include self-respect. Many people have been taught that leaving is weakness, that walking away means you didn't try hard enough, that loyalty means staying no matter what, but that's a lie wrapped in emotional pressure. True strength is in knowing when to let go. It's in realizing that loyalty should go both ways, that you deserve the same energy you give, the same support you offer, and the same care you pour into others. If someone only wants your loyalty when it benefits them, but disappears the moment you need something, that's not a relationship, that's exploitation. And the longer you stay, the more you teach them that you're okay with being used. Sometimes the fear of appearing disloyal keeps people stuck. They think that setting boundaries or saying goodbye means they're being heartless or ungrateful. But boundaries are not betrayal, they're clarity. They say, I care, but I won't destroy myself to prove it. They say, I love you, but I love myself too. There's nothing noble about remaining loyal to someone who consistently takes you for granted. Your loyalty should never be the reason you're suffering. It should never be the thing that traps you in a cycle of pain. When someone values you, they won't require you to destroy yourself to prove it. You have to stop measuring your worth by how much you can endure for someone else. You have to stop believing that the more loyal you are, the more they'll change. People don't change because you're loyal. They change when they choose to. Your presence won't transform someone who doesn't want to grow. It won't inspire respect in someone who only sees you as a convenience. And the longer you stay loyal to someone who doesn't value you, the more you teach yourself that this is all you're worth. But you're worth more than being tolerated. You're worth more than late apologies, broken promises, and emotional exhaustion. When you finally choose to walk away from someone you were once deeply loyal to, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. It means you've realized that love without respect isn't enough, that your loyalty deserves a safe place to land, that your heart is not a tool for others to use when it suits them. You are not a backup plan, a second choice, or a temporary fix. You are a whole person with needs, emotions, and value. And the moment you stop staying where you're not valued, you make space for the people who see your loyalty as something sacred, not something to exploit. So many people aren't interested in growing with you. They're only interested in using you as a ladder. They see your strength, your ambition, your giving nature, and instead of appreciating it, they see it as a tool to climb higher. These people will attach themselves to your progress, your connections, and your hard work, not because they believe in you, but because they see what you can do for them. They show up when you're building something meaningful, when you're glowing, when you're gaining momentum. But their loyalty doesn't come from the heart. It comes from opportunity. And as soon as the benefits disappear, so do they. These people are not partners in your journey. They are passengers looking for a free ride. You may not notice it at first because users are often charming. They know how to play the role of support. They'll flatter your goals, celebrate your wins, and offer just enough encouragement to keep your guard down. But pay attention. Watch who claps for you when no one's watching. Observe who stays when you have nothing to offer but your time and your truth, because those who are only with you for gain will slowly start to reveal themselves. They don't invest in your well-being. They don't ask how you're really doing unless it's tied to what they need. They don't sacrifice for you. They only take. And when they finally get what they came for, they withdraw, leaving you empty, confused, and questioning your worth. Being used doesn't always feel like betrayal. Sometimes it's disguised as friendship, mentorship, or even love. But the pattern is the same. You give, they take, and when you finally need something back, they vanish or change the subject. They tell you they're too busy, too tired, or too stressed to support you, forgetting all the times you showed up for them. These people believe in a one-way relationship where your value is tied to your usefulness. And when your usefulness fades, so does their presence. But that's not love, and it's certainly not partnership. You have to become brutally honest with yourself about the roles people play in your life. Ask yourself, would this person still be here if I had nothing to offer? If I stopped giving, would they still care? If the spotlight faded, would they still stand beside me? The answers might hurt, but they will set you free. Because the moment you realize that someone has been riding your wave without ever helping you paddle, you can choose to stop giving them access. You can choose to reserve your energy for people who show up whether the tide is high or low, for those who see your worth even when you're not winning, for those who don't need you to be perfect to stand beside you. You are not a resource to be drained. You are not a launch pad for someone else's success. Your life, your energy, your progress, it's not meant to be a shortcut for someone who won't even walk the path with you. Stop letting people treat your presence like a stepping stone. If they weren't willing to dig with you, they shouldn't be allowed to shine with you. And if they disappear when things get hard, don't let them reappear when things get better. Growth attracts opportunists as much as it attracts supporters. The difference is that supporters build with you, while opportunists build on you. You owe it to yourself to protect what you've worked so hard for, to guard your energy, your journey, and your space, to stop allowing people to benefit from your fire while they never bring wood to the flame. Let them go. Let them climb without you, because when you finally surround yourself with people who grow with you, not just gain from you, you'll realize how much lighter and more meaningful the journey becomes. There comes a moment in life when you must understand the difference between being supportive and being someone's emotional dumping ground. Not every cry for help is a genuine call for connection. Sometimes it's a disguised demand for you to carry someone else's pain while they do nothing to heal themselves. People will often lean on your empathy, your patience, your ability to listen without judgment. And before you realize it, you've become their therapist, their emotional crutch, their 3 a.m. emergency call, without ever being asked how you feel or if you're okay. This pattern begins subtly. You want to be there for them. You want to be dependable. And because you're compassionate, you offer your time, your energy, your heart. But over time, that compassion turns into depletion. Their chaos becomes your emotional weight. And instead of a relationship with mutual support, you find yourself in a dynamic where you give endlessly and receive almost nothing in return. It's not wrong to want to help people. It's not wrong to show up when someone's hurting or to be a shoulder to lean on. But when it becomes one-sided, when you're always the one listening, always the one solving, always the one holding their pieces together while yours are falling apart, something has to change. Emotional support must be a two-way street. Otherwise, it becomes emotional labor. And when that labor is unreciprocated, it leads to exhaustion, resentment, and emotional burnout. You begin to feel more like a tool than a person. You're there when they need you, but they vanish when you need them. You provide comfort for their storms, but when your sky darkens, they're nowhere to be found. That kind of relationship is not healthy. It's not nurturing. It's one-sided survival at the cost of your own emotional health. You have to be willing to ask yourself hard questions. Are you being supportive or are you being used? Are you offering help or are you enabling someone's refusal to grow? Are you truly connected or are you being convenient? Emotional users often don't realize the damage they're doing. They may even convince you that you're their only lifeline, that they can't make it without you. But that's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for healing anyone who refuses to take steps toward their own healing. You are not obligated to be the emotional backbone for people who never ask how much weight you're carrying. When someone consistently uses your emotional availability without regard for your well-being, that's not a connection, it's a transaction. It's a silent agreement where you give your energy and in return receive more problems, more stress, more pain that isn't even yours. And over time, that emotional imbalance chips away at your sense of peace. You begin to feel heavy without knowing why. You lose your joy, your energy, your ability to be fully present in your own life because your mind is always processing someone else's issues. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not what real support looks like. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It's survival. It's not a rejection of the other person. It's a recognition of your own limits. You cannot be everything to everyone, and you shouldn't have to be. Healthy relationships allow space for both people to be heard, held, and helped. If someone only reaches out when they need something, only values you when you're useful, or only connects with you in crisis, they are not building a bond, they're building a dependence. And the longer you allow it, the more they believe it's your job to carry them. Protect your peace. Guard your heart, and remember that your emotional energy is not an unlimited resource. The people who genuinely care for you will not only take, they will also give. They will listen, support, encourage, and lift you just as you do for them. Relationships should restore you, not drain you. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to stop being the emotional safety net for those who never offer you the same in return. When you allow yourself to constantly be the source of someone else's emotional comfort, you begin to lose sight of your own needs. It's easy to get caught in the trap of believing that if you keep giving, if you keep showing up for everyone else, you'll somehow be validated, loved, or appreciated. But in reality, this pattern only depletes you. You give so much of yourself, and yet the more you give, the less you have left for your own life, your own dreams, and your own peace of mind. People who are used to receiving from you often forget that relationships are supposed to be reciprocal. They take without considering the toll it takes on you, and before long, you're left with nothing but empty promises and unfilled needs. The problem lies in how we often define our worth through the needs of others. We start believing that our value is tied to what we can do for someone else, how much we can give, and how selflessly we can show up. But this is a dangerous cycle because no matter how much you give, it will never be enough for those who take without ever considering what you need. You will always feel like you're chasing after their approval, waiting for their recognition, hoping for their validation, but it will never come in the way you expect. People who only take never truly give back, and their reliance on you will drain you until you have nothing left to offer. Eventually, you will start to feel resentful because no matter how much you sacrifice, you're still left empty. You will wonder why they don't show the same level of care, why they don't make an effort when you need it, and why they seem to take your presence for granted. The truth is, by continuously allowing others to drain you, you're teaching them that it's okay to treat you this way. You're giving them permission to use you without any consequences, to take from you without ever having to give anything in return. This can lead to a dangerous imbalance in your relationships, one that will leave you emotionally exhausted and frustrated. You might begin to feel like an object or an afterthought, someone who is only there to provide for others and never to receive. You are not a utility, a convenience, or a stepping stone for someone else's growth. You are a human being with your own desires, dreams, and emotional needs. And it's time to start prioritizing them. The first step in breaking this pattern is to start recognizing your own worth. You are not defined by what you do for others. Your value is not tied to how much you can give, how much you can endure, or how much you can sacrifice. Your worth is inherent. It's not up for negotiation. When you begin to internalize this truth, you stop allowing people to treat you as if you're dispensable. You stop allowing them to take advantage of your kindness and generosity. You understand that true relationships are built on mutual respect, not one-sided transactions. Another key to breaking this cycle is setting clear boundaries. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about creating a space where both you and others can thrive. When you set boundaries, you are communicating to the world that you value yourself, that your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being matter. Boundaries protect you from being used, from being drained, and from becoming the source of someone else's emotional comfort at the expense of your own. Imagine that. They teach others how to treat you, and more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself with the same respect and care that you extend to others. It's not easy to stop the cycle of overgiving, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that this is the way to show love or prove your worth. But when you start to realize that giving to the point of exhaustion doesn't make you loved, it makes you vulnerable to being taken advantage of, you'll start to reclaim your power. You'll stop living for others' validation and start living for your own fulfillment. You'll learn that the most loving thing you can do for someone else is to take care of yourself first. When you fill your own cup, you have more to give, and the giving becomes a choice, not an obligation. It becomes an expression of love, not an act of sacrifice. And in that space, real connections are made where both people give freely without fear and without expectation. It's easy to get caught in the cycle of people-pleasing, where you constantly go out of your way to meet everyone else's needs, often at the expense of your own. You find yourself saying yes to things you don't want to do, agreeing to take on tasks that aren't your responsibility, and stretching yourself too thin just to keep others happy. You convince yourself that it's what you should do, that by constantly giving, you'll gain approval, love, or respect. But what you're really doing is teaching others that your time and energy are limitless, that your worth is tied to your ability to serve them, and that your boundaries don't matter. And over time, you begin to feel drained, unappreciated, and disconnected from your own needs. When you constantly put others' needs before your own, you start to lose sight of who you are and what you want. You stop asking yourself what you need, what you desire, or what makes you happy. Instead, your life becomes a reflection of everyone else's expectations. You start to live for others rather than for yourself, and before you know it, your identity becomes tangled with the approval of those around you. Your sense of self-worth becomes dependent on how much you're willing to sacrifice for others. But the truth is, no one can truly appreciate you or respect you if you don't first appreciate and respect yourself. People will only treat you as well as you allow them to. If you continually give without regard for your own limits, people will come to expect that of you. They will begin to take your kindness for granted, assuming that you will always be there to help, to listen, or to fix things for them. The problem is, this dynamic is unsustainable. Eventually, you'll reach a breaking point where you can no longer keep up with the demands of others. You'll feel overwhelmed, resentful, and empty, because you've been pouring into others without ever refilling your own cup. The more you give without boundaries, the more you diminish your own value. You teach others that your needs are secondary, and in doing so, you teach yourself the same thing. One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to learn to say no. It doesn't make you selfish, it makes you healthy. Setting boundaries is a form of self-respect, not an act of rejection. When you say no, you are telling the world that you value your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. You are asserting that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Saying no doesn't mean you don't care about others. It means you care enough about yourself to prioritize your own peace, mental health, and happiness. It's an act of self-love, not selfishness. Learning to set boundaries requires a shift in mindset. It means recognizing that you are not obligated to meet everyone else's needs, that it's okay to put yourself first, and that your worth is not tied to how much you can give. It means understanding that true relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, not on one-sided sacrifice. When you begin to value yourself, you stop measuring your worth by what you do for others. You begin to understand that your time, energy, and love are precious, and that they should be given to those who respect and appreciate them. You stop allowing people to use you as a doormat, and you start taking ownership of your own life and choices. The key to breaking the cycle of people-pleasing is to start recognizing your own needs and desires as valid. You are not here to serve everyone else's agenda. You are here to live your own life, to pursue your own dreams, and to honor your own well-being. When you start living for yourself, you begin to attract relationships that are based on mutual respect and care. You begin to surround yourself with people who value you for who you are, not for what you can do for them. And in turn, you'll be able to give more freely because you'll be giving from a place of abundance, not depletion. When you prioritize yourself, you'll find that you have more to offer the world and those you care about because you're no longer operating from a place of exhaustion or resentment. Instead, you'll be giving from a place of joy, peace, and self-respect. You are not meant to be anyone's second choice or fallback option, yet so often people find themselves in relationships where they are the one who is only valued when everything else falls apart. You may have found yourself in situations where you were the one people turned to when things got tough, but when life was going well, you were forgotten. This isn't a relationship built on mutual respect or genuine care. It's built on convenience. You are being used, not appreciated. This kind of relationship erodes your self-worth and leaves you feeling like a backup plan, never truly a priority. It's important to recognize that you deserve to be a priority in someone's life just as much as they should be in yours. People who only show up when they need you aren't showing real love, friendship, or respect. They are showing a version of you that serves them when they're in need, but once they're fine, they disappear without a second thought. These are not the kinds of connections you should be investing in because they will drain your energy, leave you questioning your value, and make you feel less than you truly are. It can be painful to acknowledge when someone you care about doesn't truly prioritize you, but understanding this truth is liberating. When you are constantly someone's backup, it's a clear sign that they do not see your worth. They are treating you as an option, not a necessity. They don't value your time, your energy, or your presence unless it benefits them. And the more you allow yourself to be in this type of relationship, the more you are allowing others to take advantage of your kindness and your emotional investment without ever reciprocating. You need to recognize that your worth is not conditional. It is not tied to how available you are to others in their time of need or how much you're willing to sacrifice. Your value is inherent, and no one should ever make you feel like you're only important when they need something. People who care about you will show up when times are good and when times are tough. They will value you not just because of what you can do for them, but because of who you are. They will make you a priority, not an option. This doesn't mean you should only engage with people when it's convenient for you, but it does mean that you should stop being the one who always gives without receiving. You need to stop settling for relationships where you are the fallback, where you are only chosen when there's no one else to turn to. The moment you start recognizing that you deserve better, you begin to demand better for yourself. You start choosing relationships where there's balance, where effort is mutual, where both people invest in each other's happiness and success. When you stop being someone's second choice, you stop allowing yourself to be devalued. You stop allowing people to take your love, your kindness, and your time for granted. You stop being the person who is always available when no one else is, and you start to surround yourself with people who make the effort to be there when you need them, not just when they need you. You stop accepting relationships that are based on convenience and start seeking out relationships built on respect, loyalty, and genuine care. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires you to value yourself more deeply and to make choices that reflect that value. You may have to let go of people who have been a part of your life but haven't truly prioritized you. You may have to walk away from situations where you are nothing more than an afterthought. It will hurt, but the pain is temporary and it's necessary for you to move toward healthier, more fulfilling connection. Ultimately, when you stop being someone's backup plan, you open the door for better things to come into your life. People who will recognize your worth, who will choose you not just when they're in need, but every day. You'll find yourself surrounded by those who respect you, those who make an effort to be there in good times and bad, and those who appreciate you for the person you are, not just for what you can give. You are done shrinking. You are done pleasing. You are done being the emotional dumping ground for people who don't care how you feel. From this moment on, respect is the standard, reciprocation is the requirement, and peace is the goal. No more bending until you break. No more saying yes when your soul screams no. No more chasing people who show you again and again that they don't see your value. You were never created to be used. You were created to shine, to lead, to thrive. So rise, say it loud and clear. I will no longer be used, because the moment you choose yourself, the right people will too.